Dear brothers and sisters, when we hear the issue of slavery, when we hear the concept of slavery, or when we read about slavery in history, we all get scared, shudder, feel uncomfortable. We don't like to hear about slavery, because we have a nature that is inclined towards freedom. But whether we appreciate it or not, whether we see it or not, whether we accept it or not, we are living that slavery at the highest level right now. Who do we call a slave? Let's say we call someone whose freedom has been taken away from them in some way a slave. Someone whose will is mortgaged is called a slave. We call a slave someone who is only guided by his master's orders at work and fulfills his master's wishes and demands, who can act within the framework of his master's permission. We call a slave someone who is constantly taking orders, and in order to fulfill those orders, sometimes spends more than his/her strength at work, spends more than his/her strength in labor, and really suffers in this sense. We call a slave someone who can never take a step on their own and is exploited for everything they have. And many other things can be said. In the past, the situation of those who were in this situation was clear. If they were captured in a war and sold in slave markets, or if they fell into the hands of slave traders in some other way and became like this in this sense, if they became a slave in the hands of a tyrant, you can add these or other things to this. There were many people who continued their lives as slaves. But now everything has changed. As the modern world has modernized everything, it has also modernized slavery. In the past, slaves used to have shackles on their feet, arms, and heads. They used to wear yokes, for example. Handcuffs and chains were put on their hands. They had other things on their feet in this sense. Today's slaves do not have these things. The tools of slavery have also changed. Now I will draw your attention to a different kind of slavery. According to the information given to us by the Digital 2022 Global Statistics Report, a typical normal mobile user spends 4 hours and 48 minutes on the phone during the day. 4 hours and 48 minutes is 5 hours. 5 hours a day. A day is 24 hours, and 5 hours a day are spent on that phone. People don't just talk. We all know what we do on the phone. And this is not the only part of our lives. When we go home in the evening, or in front of our computers at work, 3.5 hours are added to this time. A normal internet user in Turkey spends 8 hours, 1/3 of his/her day on the internet, whether on the phone or on the computer. Most people who spend time on the computer or on the internet already know what that time is spent on and what it is spent on. There is also a financial dimension. We all already know how serious a financial bill we face for spending so much time. But apart from that, 58.4% of internet users buy something online every week. If this continues at this rate, there has already been a very serious increase in the last few years. The picture we see in front of us in 2025 already scares us. In other words, if the predictions turn out to be true, which is very likely, believe me, we will see a very strange picture. And in this picture, what is being done, what will happen both materially and spiritually and in terms of time, what kind of thing will we encounter? So we need to put these on the agenda right now and talk about them seriously. For example, look at internet users. There are so many platforms and free areas. Despite this, 71.5% of them also become members of some platforms by making payments on other platforms, whether it is movies, music, or games. And this figure reaches 80%, especially in the millennial generation. Therefore, we encounter a very different picture in every dimension. If we evaluate the issue on the scale of our own country, for example, we have some championships in this field. I mean, world championship. We are absent in many areas, but we are present in such areas. For example, Turkey is the 6th country in the world in terms of active use of social media. Do you know who is in the first 7? We are in the 6th, but who is in the first 7? Brazil ranks first, then India, then Indonesia, then the Philippines, then Malaysia, then Turkey, and finally China. After that, the list goes on and on. Therefore, all of this can be explained in more detail, but let's not drag this out any longer. All of this leads us to one point. We are faced with a digital world that covers our lives in a very serious way. Because this digital world is not used in a Muslim way, because it is not used humanely, because some things are not paid attention to, believe me. It has condemned us in 5 areas. Whether we see it or not, whether we accept it or not, this digital world condemns us to a digital fascism. It condemns us to a digital execution. It condemns us to a digital lifelessness. It condemns us to a digital stupidity, and a concept that will encompass them all condemns us to a digital slavery. For example, we are under the bombardment of digital fascism. The sovereign powers, those who manage this business, those who really eat a large part of the cake in this business, and those who continue this business to eat that cake, want to create a sentence that will guide us and direct the masses as they want. This is not just an ideology. For example, look, there is a fashion fascism in this digital fascism. There is a fascism in sexuality, and of course there is a fascism in racism. So this fascism does not have a single dimension, but they want to create a ground that can direct the masses as they wish. In digital execution, we see that at the global level and at the local level. Did they risk eating someone? Did they want to discredit someone in the eyes of society? Did they want to assassinate reputation? They do this very comfortably. Sometimes it can be a person, sometimes it can be a religion, sometimes it can be an ideology, it doesn't matter. In other words, there is an execution in the digital world, and they do this execution in a very beautiful way by using all the means available to them. There is a digital lifelessness. This is the most troublesome area, and unfortunately, whatever is bad and ugly is imposed on the society at this point, and as the most popular area, this area is coming to a point that will destroy lives and lead lives to very different troubles. Look, we are living in a period of time when the world's veil of Haya is torn. Especially the digital world is eliminating everything that belongs to Haya, embarrassment. Because the most important feature that distinguishes us from other creatures is Haya, and Haya is life for us. If there is Haya, there is life. In fact, it kills us by making us lifeless. It eliminates us by making us lifeless. By making us lifeless, it brings us to a point where we are no different from other living things, and the digital world does this in a very planned and programmed way. There is a digital stupidity. You spend 8 hours a day doing meaningless things. When a person wastes his intelligence, will memory remain? Will consciousness remain? Will consciousness remain? Look, most of our children and young people today speak with one word. So when you ask them how they are, they say, "I'm fine. How's your father? I'm fine. How is your mother? I'm fine. How are the lessons? I'm fine. How's it going? I'm fine." Always one word and nothing more. A youth who cannot dream. Our children who cannot dream. This is the point where this digital world has brought us with the stupidity it has created for us. And that slavery that encompasses all of this is digital slavery, and the chains and shackles that digital slavery puts on our necks, hands, and feet, which are invisible and visible in a way, but invisible in a way that is visible. and the point at which they condemn us to many things at this point, in many things in a different way, taking away our humanity, our free will, putting a mortgage on our wills, putting a mortgage on our time, putting a mortgage on our time in a different way, and directing us in this sense. Now, my beautiful brothers and sisters, if we want to be free, we are human beings, and our favorite thing should be freedom. If we want to achieve freedom, we have to use things in a Muslim way. Unless we use things in a Muslim way, we will never be able to get rid of this slavery. If we are not going to use it in a Muslim way, we cannot use it anyway. In fact, they are using us, those tools are using us. How those platforms use us. They direct our perceptions. They shape our demands. They affect our feelings. They affect our lives. They affect our languages. They affect our morals. Everything affects everything. Therefore, we have to say lay to this digital slavery. Just as we said la ilaha to all those gods, those false gods that try to enslave us, we said la to everything that tries to enslave us. At this point, we said something that belongs to the first step of Tawheed by putting forward that la ilaha. Believe me, we have to say la ilaha to these digital platforms, to the impositions of this digital world, and to this digital slavery. If we don't say this, and if we don't use these tools in a Muslim way, and if we are used by these tools, we will become tools. In fact, we will become simple if we will become slaves. I mean, our wills will be cancelled. Our lives, our health, our material and spiritual savings will be gone. Not only will we lose many things, but we will also lose the responsibilities that life imposes on us, which are the most important responsibilities in the most faithful sense. For example, we will miss out on building the earth and worshiping Allah. And time will pass. We will say, woe. We will hit our knees. But it will be too late. We have to realize this digital slavery and take the necessary steps together. May Allah give us this consciousness at this point. May Allah give us consciousness at this point and free us from this digital slavery as soon as possible, just as we are in an effort and endeavor to free us from all kinds of slavery.